it's getting into a vicious circle. So let us look at what is e-governance. This is a very simple definition which I am putting up on the slide now. There's I think a few seconds delay what comes on the webinar. Yeah, it is up now. The definition says that it is the transformation of government to provide efficient, convenient, transparent services to the citizens and businesses through ICT, through information and communication technologies. So the focus, if you look at, are those the colored words which talks about transformation, and efficiency, convenience to the citizen, transparency, and to whom? Citizen and businesses. So the essence is what we call in industry BPR, business process reengineering. In government, we coined a new word, we call it as GPR, government process reengineering. So it's not ICT which is the prime driver for e-governance, but it is the level extent of transformation which one can do in these projects. So that is the real word or principle which drives e-governance as compared to our pure ICT or IT initiatives. Okay. There have been a lot of transformation, good stories in India, and we have seen over years since 2000, we have been looking at lots and lots of initiatives across the state governments, across rural level, through NGOs, through state governments, through industry. It could be in terms of looking at a portal which is available 24 hours for e-procurement. You don't have to go to a department to submit a tender, but sitting at home or your office, wherever you are, irrespective of the geography, the city where the tender is to be submitted, you could really apply that. And going to the rural area, the farmers, they can get a lot of information about farming, about the agriculture produce, the mandi rates, what we know very much are available today, and a single point of contact for the citizens in various cities, urban and rural, to avail the services. And you also have a lot of innovations like Infotela, which was done a long time back by IIT Kanpur. So a lot of innovations are available, and a lot of these things are happening in the country. And this is what we are looking at from the old systems where we had to stand in line. It's still happening. It's not that it has transformed, but these are very few pockets which is happening across the country. Now, this next slide, it shows about the framework which brings about clearly the connections between good governance and e-governance. And on the left side, if you look at, you have the different stakeholders who interact or get impacted by the services of the government, the citizens, businesses, various government departments, they themselves are the clients of each other, the central government versus the state government themselves, and there could be a lot of other social media and various voluntary organizations. And at the bottom, if you look at, we are these words which talk about transparency, accountability, responsiveness. All these are prime principles of good governance. It's nothing new which we are talking about. But e-governance is something which can really bring about a transformational change and an enabler in terms of making this happen. Okay, I'm just moving to the next slide. It's slow. Yeah. Now, in e-governance, if you look at, there are two interfaces which become very, very critical in our designing of any of these projects. One is the front end, where the citizen interacts with the government, and the second is the back end, where the government processes the application which is delivered or submitted by the citizen, and then accordingly, the processing, after processing the driving license or whatever passport, goes to the front end, and where the delivery happens to the citizens. So these are the two prime interfaces which are very, very important end-to-end. That's what we are talking about. Transformation end-to-end. It's not only we just put computers in the front, but at the back, we still take the same amount of time to process. So it is an integrated effort approach which we are looking at in e-governance. And when we design, you look at four pillars, four critical pillars in the design. The first pillar is the processes. You have to re-engineer, you have to change the old processes, bring in legal amendments. Second pillar talks about people, that is change management. How do you manage the risk? As employees have been, government people have been working for years, so why should I change? Why should I do this? There will be a lot of various intermediaries whose work would be affected. So that's a major component, major part in this whole transformation, handling people. And the third is the technology. How do you look at the scaling up of the technology, security aspect, more and more online services are available, then the security, the risks for getting people, unwanted people onto these online services, the hacking and all those things get into an issue. And the fourth important is in terms of resource. When we talk of how do you sustain the project, in terms of the business value, in terms of the business model, the revenue model. So who funds and for how many years can these initiatives become self-sustainable? Can they become their own revenue generated initiatives? So how do you make that happen? So these are the four key pillars, and around these four pillars, what we really need to answer in our ultimate design are these four questions. The first is the most important when we talk about what ultimately we want to achieve out of this initiative. And many times we say that we'll put up so many thousands of computers, we'll develop a ERP, we'll develop maybe a COTS or a bespoke model, or we'll put in so much of network connectivity will happen. But these are all what we really look at as outputs. So what is the benefit? What is the net outcome of these initiatives? That has to be very, very clear. Ultimately, the beneficiary is the citizen or the business houses. So how do they get benefited out of this? That is the first question. The third, fourth, and fifth will lead later on. That's not really a challenge. How do you implement? What technology? And all those is not a problem. Resources, you can have a business model, you can have funding. Who's responsible for what role? But the prime question is, what do you really want to achieve? And that is one of the biggest challenge to even bring clarity onto that first question. So this is a very high-level framework giving a connection to all of us to understand how we are moving from good governance to e-governance. Okay. Now from here, let me move on to slightly the e-governance context in terms of the national vision. And in India, we have a national e-governance plan. It's called by NGP. And this is a flagship e-governance program of Government of India approved by the Cabinet in May 2006. And it comprises of around 31 mission mode projects, which are the most important initiatives which cut across the central government, state government, or the local governments, and where there's a large interface with the public, with the business community, or internally within the government itself. So there are 31 mission mode projects, and in addition, the plan also has a related core and common support infrastructure. And if you look at the definition, the vision statement, it's simple, and it brings out all the words which you have been talking about as principles of good governance. You're talking of all government services, locality, his locality, common service outlets. We are talking of let department not work in silos, but let one outlet serve for multiple departments. Okay, so that is where we're looking at. Let's try to synergize, integrate, okay, and at affordable cost. Citizens are happy to make a payment for the services they want to charge, they want to take, provided there's a commitment and quality from the government. Okay. This is another interesting survey, the recent survey which was done from annual survey done by United Nations, and India's global ranking in this survey, global survey 2012 stands at 125 out of 193 countries. Now that is quite surprising, maybe to some of us. And it's not that. In 2010, we were ranked at 6th, and we have dropped down to 6th in terms of 6th rank. We have dropped down, slipped down to 6th rank. and Korea continues to be leading at rank 1. That is the most interesting part. And this survey is primarily done on three level of index. They look at the telecommunication penetration, they look at the human capital and online service delivery. One of the highlights which comes across this particular survey this year is that they find that a lot of countries, the shift in e-governance is happening by bringing technology to the people instead of people coming to the technology hubs. And we see that very much happening in India, where you can look at the mobile penetration, and mobile is becoming a very big lever to deliver e-governance services in India. But these are there are very few examples which one could really bring about, which are very much visible across the country. To name some of them, like Indian Railways, which is astonishing transformation coming from that that cardboard ticket to now no ticket. So you have a mobile, you don't require. So it's a major transformation which we have come across in an initiative like Indian Railways. Apart from that, you have the MCA21, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which is a single window for the companies, and now the companies need not really go to the department at all, and it's mandatory. They have to submit all their files, their returns in the electronic form. So it has taken away the interface, the physical interface, which was one of the bottleneck in delivering of the transparent and corruption-free services to the business houses. And one can definitely look at the mobile penetration which is happening across the rural and urban area. However, at the same time, there are many more e-government projects which have been delayed, abandoned, or in drag mode, but are not visible to public eye. So how do we increase these numbers which are there on the screen? How do we increase these learnings from these initiatives? If it can happen in railways, why not in another department, in the government department? Now, the next slide is slightly interesting, which I feel always motivated to show, and it comes from the IT sector. IT people would have seen this, and here we talk about why the projects fail. Primarily, if you look at the wish list or the scope of work is huge. Okay, so wish list is we want the moon. Okay, but we don't really provide much budget. And in e-governance, when you look at it, it's not just buying of computers, setting up infrastructure networks, but it's more than buying of services. And that's where we really need to appreciate the amount of the budget, financial resources, and the time to implement these would be much larger as compared to just buying computers. So ultimately, if you cut down on the budget and time, which is the most important for any of these successes, you might land up into getting a wheelbarrow instead of getting a Rolls Royce or something which you really was dreaming for. So, yeah. Now we move on to looking at what is the e-governance life cycle, project life cycle. Okay. How is it different from our